Right. Good evening. Today we are continuing with our 8th session. This is we are going to complete the second week today, and this is the 8th session. Yesterday we completed up till the project stakeholders, and we were about to discuss project governance. Although we did talk about organizational governance in the first chapter, and we also mentioned project governance in the beginning of this chapter. But here we are going to go slightly in detail about the matter project governance. As you might understand by now, project governance is an oversight function, and this is aligned with the organizational governance model. You remember the organizational governance we defined earlier. So it is subordinate to the organizational governance. Whatever rules and regulations have been set in the organizational governance are to be followed strictly by the project governance, but project governance provides further details remaining within the same umbrella of the organizational governance. It provides further details specific to the project. So there might be other umbrellas in between, like program governance and portfolio governance could be in between the project governance and organizational governance, but every subordinate governance is abiding by the upper level governance. So the whole governance model is actually established in mature organizations. This is only for those organizations who really want to keep a consistent mechanism applied in their organizations, a check and balance system in which everybody must be able to work consistently on the project. So specifically speaking, from the project point of view, we want to bring consistency in our projects through this project governance, which is naturally under the organizational governance. And this project governance also specifies the further details about the project, how the project should be laid out. So project lifecycle becomes a major topic in project governance, because organization may suggest what kind of project lifecycle is allowed. There could be more than one types of project life cycles, or there could be a single life cycle which is recommended by the project governance, and only that can be used. So the project governance framework provides the project manager and the team with a general structure, various processes and decision-making models and tools for managing the project while supporting and controlling the project for successful delivery. So it is serving two purposes. Number one, this is providing this framework for the project manager and his team as if they can plan further and do consistent practices in alignment with the organization strategy, and all the projects in the organization should be working almost in the same framework. Number two, this also provides a check and balance system from the top, and that would be part of the project governance, how to check how various projects are following this framework. Project governance is a critical element for any project, especially when it is a complex or a risky project. You see, if you are doing a simple, small little project, and maybe it is just 2 days long, and you may not have a very formal framework under which you are working. But if the things are more complex, more complicated, or you are dealing with a lot of uncertainty or risky projects, then project governance will come in handy. It will provide you consistency. So it provides a comprehensive, consistent method of controlling the project and ensuring its success by defining and documenting and communicating reliable, repeatable project practices. So this would be a part of the project governance. What documents must be created, how those documents should be created. So these instructions are provided. What are the most important documents which are to be used as KPIs, maybe, as if the project sponsor or whomsoever is looking at the project governance can see if the project is functioning properly or not. So this is a fairly good mechanism by which you can have a check and balance system. Now it also mentions here about ensuring the success of project. You remember the next topic under this subheading of project stakeholders and governance is project success. So project success is attributable to the project governance. Better governance, better chances of succeeding. So to be successful in the project, you have to define and document and communicate these reliable, repeatable project practices. So that way we are bringing in the consistency in our projects. It includes a framework for making project decisions. And the most important thing to ensure the success of the project is that the various roles, responsibilities and accountabilities are clearly defined. For everything to be done in project, what the project governance is telling us, define the roles, responsibilities and accountabilities clearly. So if the project manager does that, then a lot many problems which might surface later in the life of the project would be eradicated, because he would know who has what role, what are his responsibilities and who is accountable for that specific thing. So this also serves as a mechanism of determining the effectiveness of the project manager. How well is he laying out his project? Project's governance is defined by and fits within the larger context of the portfolio, program or organization sponsoring it, but is separate from organizational governance. Why is it separate? Whereas we are saying that this is part of the same umbrella, this is under the shade of the same umbrella, the organizational umbrella, organizational governance, then the portfolio governance, then maybe the program governance, and then is the project governance. Yes, it is abiding by all the rules of all governances in the upper tiers, but at the same time, the details discussed in the project governance are unique. These are further explanations and certain specific instructions about the projects only. It defines the framework for the project. That's why this is separate from organizational governance, although all the rules of organizational governance do apply in project governance as well. How PMO can play a role in project governance? As we already said, that a PMO is supposed to be looking after all the projects within the organization. If it is a organizational level PMO. So whatever domain PMO is covering, all the projects within that domain are falling in the responsibility of that PMO. And if there is a project governance mechanism, PMO may also play some decisive role, because PMO would also know what is that framework which is to be followed by all the projects. So project governance involves stakeholders as well as documented policies, procedures, standards, responsibilities and authorities, and the templates for those. And the templates for those could be elaborated by PMO and could be made available to the projects, and PMO can also ensure if all the projects are falling according to that. So if you like, you can say that PMO may be playing a role of police in this game. It is not only releasing the specific policies, procedures and standards in accordance with the project governance to the projects to be followed, but it also is ensuring that they are working according to that. Example of the elements of project governance framework may include the project success and deliverable acceptance criteria. How would you decide that your project has finally been successful or your deliverable has been accepted? So every project is given an instruction that such a criteria must be established and how this criteria can be established. Now it is the responsibility of the project manager to establish that criteria for project success and for the acceptance of the deliverables. It also defines the process to identify, escalate and resolve issues that arise during the project. As we discussed about the escalation of issues before, we understand escalation of issues is not a specific subject of project management. This happens to be in place in the organization already, and we are adopting it, but naturally we have to tailor it according to needs of the project. What are the roles and responsibilities of various levels? Who has the authority to give a decision on a certain issue, or when should it be escalated to the next higher level? So these are some of the examples of project governance framework. Once we are talking about PMO, the relationships amongst the project team, organizational groups and external stakeholders must also be defined. Who can communicate with whom, how, and what should be the basic criteria for that? Project organizational chart that identifies the project roles must be identified, because we have already said that in project governance, the roles, the responsibilities, and the authorities and accountabilities should be defined. And here, how do we define it in the project? It is through a project chart and several other certain tools we use in support of this project chart. Then the processes and procedures must be put in place for the communication of information. Decision-making process must be defined. Guideline for aligning project governance and organizational strategy. So we understand that our project is going to be working in alignment with the organizational strategy, but how is the project governance being aligned with the organizational strategy? That is an important question, and naturally that does not fall in the domain of the project manager, but as far as the project itself is concerned, he would be ensuring that he is following the project governance rules and regulations. And the most important thing is the project life cycle, which we'll be discussing a bit later. And project life cycle actually defines how we break the project into smaller parts, and how do we go about completing the project. And every phase, once completed, is kind of a stage gate for us, or a place where the phases are reviewed. At the end of every phase, there would be a point where we will stop and we will prepare ourselves for the audit or review by the top level management or the sponsor or the project board. They would come and view and give the go-no-go decision. We discussed yesterday. The go-no-go decision is given here. So the project is reviewed, the phase is reviewed here, the deliverable is checked, and we are given the go-ahead signal to move on to the next phase, or we are stopped for doing any further job.
Excuse me, sir.
Gigi?
Sir, I guess the slide is stuck, I think.
Okay, I'm sorry for that.
Because
बड़ी देर हो गई ये तो इसका मतलब है.
I was thinking, because I thought you were on the same slide, that's why.
Okay. Do let me know when you see the current slide. I'll just push back a few slides and I'll just show you what was there.
Okay, now it's good, sir. And one question, sir.
Yeah.
Who really defines the project governance?
Okay. Who is in charge of the project? On top of the project manager, who is the person?
Sir, it could be like project director or program.
Program, exactly. If it is program manager, then he is responsible for developing the program governance structure. If it is the project sponsor or the project director, he is responsible for that. So this is the governance structure for this project, and there could be a standardized governance structure for all the projects, which could be developed by the PMO. Are we clear on that?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So this was the very first slide in which we talked about the consistent method and all that. And the next slide was this one. Here we define the roles, responsibilities and accountabilities. These are the major points to be decided once you start developing your project management plan. So framework is providing, the governance framework is providing us that you should define these things, the roles, responsibilities and accountabilities, and also determine the success criteria. Check the effectiveness of the project manager. Then we also have to define and document the policies, procedures and standards. This is given in the framework that these things have to be done, and now the project manager is there to do it. Responsibilities and authorities are to be defined. Success criteria and acceptance criteria is to be defined. Escalation paths are to be defined. Relationships with various stakeholders and team members, that has to be defined. Organization chart, which will actually be defining the roles and responsibilities, should be defined. Processes and procedures for communications be defined. Decision making process, how the decision making will be done in this project. Guidance for aligning the project governance and organizational structure. Project lifecycle, I said it was important because project lifecycle defines how the project is subdivided. And every subdivision, which is called phase, is basically a smaller part of the project. You can call it a small project in itself. Every phase has its own deliverable and it is a project in itself, small little project in itself. So when a phase is completed, we ensure that all the objectives of that phase have been completed, the deliverables have been delivered, and the project board comes in at this stage gate or phase gate, and they review the work till now, the deliverable, and then they give go, no-go decision. They allow us to move ahead to the next phase. Then it defines the process for review and approval for changes to budget, scope, quality, schedule, which are beyond the authority of project manager. Most of the things which are within the authority of project manager will be dealt by the project manager. Naturally, we are not trying to micromanage and we are not trying to take away his powers, but anything which he can't decide, then they will be taken up by the PMO. According to the project governance, those things will be decided. Process to align internal stakeholders with project process requirements. So we have already talked about the engagement of the stakeholders, but the internal stakeholders have to be told and briefed how we are going to go about the things, and therefore they have to be aligned with the project process requirements. Within those constraints, as well as the additional limitations, if any, of time and budget, it is up to the project manager and the project team to determine the most appropriate method of carrying out the project. You see, this, okay.
No, it's fine.
Can you, okay, can you listen to me? Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. It's good. It's good. Thank you.
It is exactly the same problem we had yesterday. This is something wrong with the net, and please do let me know whenever you can't hear me. Okay.
Sure, sir. Now it's fine.
Right. So we were talking about that, project governance has defined to us the broad constraints. Remaining within those constraints, within those limits, then it is in the power of project manager to decide everything within those constraints. So we are not taking away the powers of the project manager and the team, and they will be responsible for determining the best appropriate method for carrying out the project. Remaining within those constraints of the project governance, there is a lot of room to play. And within that room to play, project manager and project team will use various tools, methods, techniques and everything. They will not be, their hands would not be completely tired. But naturally, we have drawn some boundaries, and within those boundaries, they have to play, they have to act. While project governance,
excuse me, sir, one question. One thing you just mentioned that the life cycle of the project, it's going to be defined under the governance. So my question is, and even just now, as you were mentioning that there are some lines and there are some boundaries, project manager is the person who is actually going to plan the project.
okay.
So for example, these governance stuff, it might hinder his work, like it might be obstruction for his work. So, I mean, is it possible, or how do we minimize that?
You see, I might have said something which could have resulted in this understanding. Basically, in project governance, they don't know, those who are developing the project governance structure, they do not know the project in detail. There is no planning as yet which is done. So they are laying out the general rules and regulations. They are providing us, say there are 20 different methods worldwide to create the project phases. Project governance has defined that following 3 methods are the only 3 methods allowable for this project. You can use any one of these. Now, remaining within that constraint, it is the responsibility of the project manager and the team to select whichever suits them the best from the project perspective. So this is not the matter of micromanagement. We are not defining rules. We do not define the phases in governance. We just define the general layout of the project, general layout, how the phases can be divided, how the phases can be named, or how the phases can be divided. In some organizations, as we'll study in the project life cycle, in general, some organizations have a standard project life cycle which applies to all of their projects. They have made it a standard. So if that be the case, then you are bound by project governance to follow that specific project life cycle, but then there is a standard. Every project will have to follow that. But generally speaking, project governance does give a lot of room to play for the project manager and the project team, and they are not that restrictive. This governance framework is not that restrictive. Whatever the life cycle guidelines they provide, they must be followed, but at the same time, they do not have to be very restrictive. Am I clear about it?
Yes, sir. Yes, thank you.
So please do not think that project governance is kind of a state within a state. We are not trying to do that. Project governance has its own responsibilities, its own level. And project management is just following the instructions, general instructions given by the project governance, and then it is going into the further details and designing the things by themselves. There is a lot of room to play for the project manager and the team. Similarly, this framework, in this framework, the project team performs. The team is still responsible for planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing. So everything within the project is the responsibility of project team, and they are at liberty to plan, execute, and do everything as it is in the responsibilities of the project management. Project governance approach should be described in the project management plan. So whatever is the governance provided to you, the framework provided to you, your project management plan should describe that, should tell that this is the governance instruction given to us, and in accordance exactly with that, we have decided to do a project this way. So that would justify that your project management plan is exactly in alignment with the project governance. So project governance is a key input to developing the project management plan. Decisions are made regarding who will be involved, the escalation procedures, what resources are necessary, and the general approach to completing the work. Another important consideration is whether more than one phase will be involved, and if so, the specific life cycle for the individual project. And again, we are not saying that this project will always have 5 phases. Although project governance could have provided that, it could have said the project should not have more than this many number of phases and should not have less than many number of phases. Or it may not define that, and it may say that the project phases should be made according to the work, or according to the deliverable, or according to some industry standard. So these all are the governance instructions which could be given, and if whatever the instructions are available regarding the life cycle, those then would be followed. So this is an important consideration, whether the project can have one phase or not. Maybe you allow that a project can be whole of the project can be done in a single phase, or you can say it can have a specific number of phases in it, or it should not have more than these number of phases, or it also can say that a specific life cycle is advised for the project to adopt. So this is very limiting, but yes, project governance can say. And I'll give you an example of that. Maybe there is a web development company which always develops web pages for their clients in a specific way. Like you see, they are always having static websites. So for all the static websites, the development of all the static websites, they have formulated a standard project lifecycle. They have divided the standard project life cycle into 5 phases, and these are phase 1, phase 2, 3, 4, 5, and they are proper names for that. And this is standardized within the organization, that all projects will have exactly these 5 phases, and these would be the names for these phases. This is very restrictive, but for this organization, maybe this is the most suitable way of doing it. And this will bring consistency for all of the static website development projects, that everybody has to follow this rule. But again, I would say we are not saying that this level of restriction would be there in every project. In some organizations, the project governance may give you the laxity of using one of the 3 approaches allowed, or maybe it can give you some instructions which could say that you can take up any industry standard and you can use any life cycle from there, but you can't create your own life cycle. Well, in that case, you have to rely on the industry standards. So that way, these kind of instructions, I'm just saying these are the kinds of instructions provided in the project governance, and whatever instructions are there, we have to follow them and work in accordance with them. And within our own domain of the project management, we can have a lot of flexibility of choosing tools, of choosing life cycles and whatever, which is not being restricted by the project governance. Okay. Next topic is the project teams. I hope we are fine with the project governance, because we're finishing off with that topic. We have done the project stakeholders.
Yes, sir.
We have done the project governance.
Yes, sir. It's totally good. It's fine.
Okay, let's talk about the project teams, though it is not a very big topic, and we already have covered some of the members of the project team in project stakeholders as internal stakeholders. But anyways, here we see what are included in a project team. As I already described to you, that project team includes everybody internal to the project. That includes the project manager, that includes the project management team who help in supervision, and the workers. If we say project management team, that includes the project manager and his support staff who help him do the project, but not the workers. And if we say project manager, definitely that is only the project manager. The project team includes the project manager and the group of individuals who act together in performing the work of the project to achieve its objective. So these are the people involved in doing the work of the project. The project team includes the project manager, project management staff, and other team members who carry out the work but who are not necessarily involved with management of the project. So it is not necessary that all the people in project team are managing the project. They might be doing the project. They might be the working team members and they are not managing team members. So there could be project management team members who would be managing the things and the team members, the people who are actually working on the job. Team is comprised of individuals from different groups with specific matter knowledge or with a specific skill set to carry out the work of a project. Naturally, if I need a carpenter for doing a specific job, that might be coming from a functional department. Another person, an IT expert, coming from yet another organizational structure, so they might have been coming from different places, and they might have their different knowledge base and different skill set, but they have been assigned various duties within this project and they know who fits well where. So this all has to be designed by the management team, and management team decides who will work what and when. And they work in a cohesive manner as if the project objectives can be met. The structure and characteristics of project team can vary widely, but one constant is the project manager. What does that mean? The structure and characteristics of project team. Project to project, it will be different. There is a person who will come right in the middle of the project for doing his job and he will complete his job and he will go away from the project. So people will keep coming and keep going while the project is going on. The only one constant is project manager himself. Project manager has to be full-time and he has a role as the leader of the team, regardless of what authority the project manager may have over its members. No matter what kind of organizational structure it is, how much power project manager enjoys, but still he leads the team for the purposes of project. Project team includes various roles. Naturally, I have already defined you the project manager himself, the project management staff, which includes the assistant project managers or associate project managers and schedulers, estimators, risk managers, quality managers, whomsoever, and also the supervisors, team leads. These all are the management staff of the project. And then is the project staff, which includes the people who are actually doing the work. And on top of that, we have other people who form part of the project team on and off basis. And these could be some support experts, some advisors, some consultants. Even sometimes we have to interact with the user and customer. Maybe they are working with us for some duration of time. Then sometimes the sellers, the buyers, and our subcontractors, we may have to work with them for specific jobs. Business partners and business partner members, all of these people could be the part of the team. But classically speaking, we have the project manager, the project management team, and the project team. These are the three basic things. But in addition to that, we can have others working with us on and off during the life of the project. As far as the project management staff is concerned, as I was just enumerating to you, there could be support for scheduling, for budgeting, for reporting, controlling, communications, risk, or other administrative matters. You see, in a very small project, all of these jobs would be done personally by the project manager. He would not need to have other staff members helping him out on that, because this is a very small project and he can do for this small project all the scheduling, budgeting, reporting, everything all by himself. But if the project is complex or it is of a very long duration, probably he would need support. So recently PMI has come up with many certifications like PMI-SP, the scheduling professional. So they have finally identified recognize the role of a scheduler in a project. In a complex project, there has to be a scheduler, which already exists in civil engineering. They call it planning engineer. This planning engineer is actually the scheduler. And then they have also recognized the role of the budget, the person who is budgeting. So there is a new, another practice standard of PMI about project estimating. And that estimating deals with not only the schedule, but cost and resources also. So there is a separate standard for project estimations. So this budgeter will probably be handling specific details about those. Then reporting and control. This is a communications expert or maybe presentation expert, and then as a communication person could also be there. I'm not saying that you should have all these people. You can even have a quality manager or quality assurance manager or whatever can also be there. But it may or may not be, because we are just enumerating these different roles as if we can define the various members of the project staff management team. Project management team are the staff, and all these jobs could be done by the project manager himself or could be allocated to the separate team members. This role may be performed or supported by a project management office. Now this is slightly tricky to understand. Project management office is not part of the project, but it is a hub of activity for all the projects. This is responsible for keeping all the archives, and it is a knowledge base. This establishes and follows and checks the projects are following those rules. Therefore, all the specializations, all the knowledge is available in this hub. Maybe PMO can have a pool of schedulers and budgeters and reporters and communicators and all that, risk managers, quality managers. They can have a pool of all these people sitting in PMO, and on required basis, they can allocate them to various projects. So that could be a role of PMO, but I am not recommending that PMO starts running the projects by itself. But it can provide the resources for these kind of specialists. Then is the project staff. These are the people, as we defined, who carry out the work of the project. These are not the managers. These are the workers. They actually do the job of the project. Supporting experts could be consultants, could be contractors, could be financial experts, and whatever kind of role you can think of. Sometimes we have to hire consulting resources, subject matter experts, and these experts we take advice from. Sometimes we hire them for a shorter period of time. Maybe we assign them a part of the project or the whole project or the analysis part of it. So they can on and off be required during the life of the project. Depending on the size of the project and level of support required, support experts may be assigned to full-time work full-time, or may just participate on the team when their particular skill is required. This is exactly what I said. They could be completely a part of the project, maybe a very complex project. We need to have a project management consultant sitting with us throughout the life of the project. Yes, we can have it. Or otherwise, we can call him on required basis. User and customer, we do interact with user and customer, and in some projects, you have a lot of interaction with user and customer, because these people are working beside us. Maybe in some of the activities of the project, we have to work with the user or the customer. Members of the organization who will accept the deliverable or product of the project may be assigned to act as representatives or liaisons to ensure proper coordination, advise on the requirements, or validate the acceptability of the project results. So in the worst case, they will be working with you throughout, but normally they will only be required to interact with you on required basis, like the conditions given here, for coordination purposes, for advice, or for acceptance criteria. Whenever that has to be checked, then maybe the customer comes in. Sellers are our contractors. These could be vendors, suppliers, or contractors, and these are external to the organization. But you know that we have outsourced a part of our project. We can outsource certain parts of our project to these sellers, and if we are doing that, then they are also part of the team. They are also working for the project. Although they are working under a contract, but still they are working with us. The project team is often assigned the responsibility to oversee the performance and acceptance of sellers' deliverables of services. If the sellers bear a large share of risk for delivering the project results, they may play a significant role on the project team. Now, what do you suggest how a seller can bear a large share of risk? Yes, please. Ji Mohsen? Normally, when you see...
Sir, I didn't really get this, sir.
Okay. You see, we say if the sellers bear a large share of risk, how does he bear the large share of risk? Actually, when we were doing the whole project, if we do not have a seller, then all the risks are mine. But if I give a portion of the work to a contractor, a subcontractor, then the part I am giving to him, all the risks related to that will be handled by him. So if he is having a large share of risk, meaning what? That the portion which has been given to him, either that portion is very large or that is a very risky part. In that case, the seller would be bearing the load of large share of risk for delivering the project results. That is contributing to the project. Whatever
I see.
that is contributing to the project. And he is carrying a larger share of the risk, and therefore he will have a significant role in project team, because if anything goes wrong, the project goes wrong. Normally, when we outsource something, we are transferring the risk to the seller, and we try that we transfer as much as possible. We reduce our load as much as we can, and we try to load it all on the seller, because we are paying him for that. So we pay him to carry our load of risks. This is one strategy. There could be other strategies as well. We'll discuss that later in risk and in procurement. Then business partners, we have already discussed about the business partners, but members of the business partner organization may be assigned as members of the project team. So if there are any business partners as shareholders or things like that, then they could be part of the project. Business partners are also external companies, maybe it's a joint venture, but they have a special relationship with the enterprise, sometimes attained through a certification process. Business partners provide specialized expertise for a specified role, such as installation, customization, training, or support. So we may hire audit company to check audit our ISO practices. So this could be this is a kind of a partnership. We are getting into a relationship with them. We have a contract and they are supposed to audit us for that. So these kinds of relationships could be the business partners. Now the composition of the project team varies based on the factors such as organization, culture, scope, and location. And now this is really very important, that we should only employ those people on the project which are required. We should not, if we are using more than required people, then we are spending more than required money, and therefore we are putting more burden on the project, which is not advisable. The relationship between the project manager and the team varies depending on the authority of the project manager. Well, I would say it is not only the authority of the project manager, but it is the kind of leadership style he is using. If uh, you are leading by simply by having power or authority, then you will have only that much power which you can enjoy according to the authority given to you. But if you are leading through your charismatic personality or by winning the hearts of your people, then this relationship is more concrete. They are probably ready to sacrifice their lives for you. And that is exactly the case when we talk about soldiers. Why a soldier is ready to sacrifice his life just on a command by his leader? That is exactly what we mean by authority. Authority could have different connotations. It could have a power connotation, or it could have a motivation connotation. In some cases, a project manager may be the team's line manager with full authority over its members. So in that case, project manager has more direct authority with his team members when it is not a matrix, it is a full-fledged one-way traffic to the project manager. All the project staff knows that they have only one person to turn to, and that is the project manager, and there is no other functional manager or other person involved for making their decisions. In other cases, the project manager may have little or no direct organizational authority over the team members and may have been brought in to lead the project on part-time basis. And that was the case with a weak matrix and a functional organization. In those organizations, the project manager was part-time. He doesn't have a lot of authority, and it was basically run by the functional manager. But in strong matrix and projectized, we have exactly this kind of thing. Project manager does have authority and almost full authority over his members. Okay, the following are examples of basic team compositions: dedicated teams and part-time teams. Now this is very easy to understand. What do we mean by dedicated team and a part-time team? A dedicated team is like in the projectized organization where the team has been hired for only one purpose, and that is to do the work of the project. And they are in direct control of the project manager, and they will survive and sustain till the work is done. And then when their job is done, only then they can be laid off. Part-time are those resources which are required on and off. So when they are required, only then they will be employed. So this could occur, part-time could occur in any organizational structure, even in projectized, but normally this occurs in other organization structures like the functional organization, the weak matrix, balanced matrix, and even to some extent in strong matrix also. But mostly till balanced matrix, part-time is a normal habit as far as the team members are concerned. In a dedicated team, all or majority of the project team members are assigned to work full-time on the project. Project team may be co-located or virtual. Now this is interesting. Um, what is your preference? How do you want your team to be? Mostly we desire and we require that the team which is working on one job must be sitting together in the same location. Not even in the same building, but at the same location, in the same room. This is best if the team is co-located. But in certain cases, it is not possible for co-locating the whole of the team, especially in IT project where we have to work virtually with lot many people who are in different countries. So if that kind of limitation is there, then you can decide to go virtual. So these people, these dedicated staff, they usually report directly to the project manager because there is nobody else to report to. And he is ultimately the boss. This is the simplest structure for a project manager, as the line of authority are clear and team members can focus on the project objective. So there is no interference. There is nobody who can, pull the staff, who can order the staff to do something else. Project manager is the boss of those staff members, and therefore this is the easiest and simplest kind of a structure which can be worked. In part-time setting, some projects are established as temporary additional work with the project manager and team members working on the project while remaining on their existing organization. So, till the strong matrix, we have observed that the team members were not part of the project permanently. They actually belong to a functional organization and they were dedicated to the project for specific part-time job. And then they always revert back to their original organization and continuing to carry out their normal functions. So they are doing their functional responsibilities, but only on part-time basis they come to the project to work on the project. The functional managers maintain control over the team members and the resources allocated to the project only for the purposes of the project. For functional responsibilities, also functional manager is in charge, but for other responsibilities, for dedicating the team members to the project teams, it is also the permission of the functional manager which is required. If it is a weak matrix, then he will exercise more control. He will have more power. But in case of a strong matrix, functional manager has lesser power over the team members when they are working on the project. Project manager is likely to continue performing other management duties. That is more in weak matrix, and in balanced matrix, that rather I would not count balanced matrix here. Weak matrix and functional organization, project manager is likely to continue performing other management duties because project manager is also part-time. Part-time team members may also be assigned to more than one project at a time. So it is very much possible that there is a person in finance department, he's working 4 times in his functional organization, 2 hours with one project and 2 hours with another project. That's how his 8 hours are distributed. So it is very much possible that you can be working in more than one projects part-time at a time. Dedicated and part-time project team compositions may exist in any of the organizational structures. Dedicated project teams are often seen in projectized organizations, as I have told you earlier, where most of the organization resources are involved in project work and project managers have a great deal of independence and authority. On the other hand, part-time project teams are commonly within the functional organization. Matrix organizations are both dedicated and part-time. Other members who have limited involvement at various stages of a project can be thought of as part-time team members. So this explains pretty much everything which we have studied so far, where dedicated and where part-time team members are required. This is specifically with the context of the various organizational structures we have discussed here. What are the team compositions for various types of organizational structures? Project team composition may also vary based on the organizational structure. Partnership-based projects could have different organizational structure. A project may be established as a partnership, and in a partnership what will happen? In a joint venture or partnership or a consortium, some people are coming from one organization, some people are coming from another organization. So this is a mix. The team composition is a mix of more than one organization. In this structure, one organization takes the lead. So one organization, all organizations cannot have the same say in the project. One organization has to be declared as the lead consultant or a lead contractor or whatever you want to call it. One organization has to lead. And naturally, the organization which leads, they assign their project manager to coordinate the effort amongst all the partners. Partnership-based projects can offer flexibility at lower cost. These advantages may be offset by the project manager's lower degree of control over team members, because people are coming not from one functional organization but 3 different organizations. So project manager may have difficulty controlling them. The need for strong mechanism for communication and monitoring progress. What if these 3 organizations are from different countries speaking 3 different languages? more difficulty. Strong mechanisms for communication are required. Partnership projects may be set up to exploit industrial synergies, like we are doing CPEC and things like that, to undertake ventures that one partner could not afford alone, or for other political and strategic reasons. What could be political and strategic reason? Maybe any project to be done in Pakistan by a foreign firm must be represented by a local firm. So that could be a condition, no matter the local firm does not have that much expertise as the foreign firm is, but we do want to be represented by a local firm, as if we can, have full control over them. Geographically speaking, project team composition may also vary due to geographic locations of its members. So, they may be co-located, as we said earlier, and they could be far apart. They could be even far apart as apart as countries or oceans apart. Communication technologies allow team members in different locations or countries to work as virtual teams, and that's exactly what we are doing. We are working as a virtual team. Virtual teams are often necessary for projects where resources are located on-site or off-site or both, depending on the project activities. A project manager who is leading a virtual team needs to accommodate differences in culture, working hours, time zone, local conditions, languages, etc. And I have discussed that earlier as well with you when we were discussing the culture. Then we discussed this, that this will have its impact. So when you are working with people who are from different time zones and different local conditions and languages, you have to, formalize what language would be the official language for this project, what hours are most suitable for each one of those locations, which time zones are suitable for meetings and things like that. So all these geographical synergies has to be developed. Right, so good so far? Ji Mohsin.
Yes, sir. It's good.
Actually today.
Sir, a question now.
Ji.
I had a question. Maybe it's not. You can go ahead first. You can go ahead. You were saying something. So it's not related to the discussion, but it popped up in my mind yesterday. I couldn't ask. I could have Googled it as well, but you can answer me in a timely manner. The issue is, like, you mentioned Prince 2, and you mentioned Agile, and there is another thing I have heard about, Scrum.
Yeah.
What are these things? These are different, for project management, or I mean, what's the difference between these?
Okay. Let me explain to you. PMI gives you a framework, right? This is a standard provided by PMI, and what is a standard? That is something which is developed by a non-government body, a volunteer concern, which is made up of the industry experts, and these people get together and agree on how the practices of project management should be. So PMI decided on, with the help of these people, they decided on the standard, and this is a general framework for doing the projects. So this is what we call it, project PMBOK guide. Prince 2 is basically a methodology. Usually methodologies are used within a framework or without a framework. If you have a framework, you can fit any methodology under it. Methodologies are more detailed in nature, whereas framework is generalized. Like we talked about the governance framework. We said, okay, general guidelines available, and then we can formulate our own details in the project management plan. Similarly, about project management, internationally, a general guideline is PMBOK guide. But specific arrangements, what will be the composition of the project board, what will be the ingredients of the project charter, what should be included in the project management plan exactly. So this comes under the methodologies. So Prince 2 was developed as a methodology. Basically, this was developed earlier by the name of Prompt, Prompt, and it was back in, I think, 60s or 70s in UK. So for IT projects, they had a methodology by the name of prompt. The methodology became so popular that people started adopting it, and the government of UK, they purchased that methodology. The whole company they purchased, and they assigned this company now, which is part of the government, to create a generalized mechanism, a generalized methodology for project management for UK government projects. So Prince came into being. Prince 2 came into being. Basically, Prince was the first version which was only related with the IT, and when it became generalized, they start calling it Prince 2. So Prince 2 is a government methodology of UK about project management. Later on, it grew out to be, they started calling it standard, although it is much more detailed than PMBOK, but and it should better be called a methodology, but UK government also developed it as a standard, also expanded it into many other areas. But classically speaking, if I am following PMI's framework, that is PMBOK guide, I can very well use Prince 2 methodology remaining within the framework of PMBOK. So they can work together. That is one thing. So some people claim Prince 2 is also a standard, and some people claim it is a methodology, but whatever it is much more detailed than a standard. So you may call it a standard, you may call it a methodology, but it gives you even to the level of the team composition. What should be the team composition? Who should be included in the board, and things like that. Coming over to Agile. Agile is something completely different. Agile is a new mechanism for software development in which you can do software development in a much faster way and in a much more flexible way, where the changing requirements of the customer can always be accommodated without any hue and cry. So we even welcome change. We don't say no to the customer. We always welcome change, and we are always prepared to amend our plans accordingly. And to do that, what they did was, as we are about to discuss the project life cycle, you will see project life cycle, we divide our work into various portions. The whole project is divided into various portions, and those portions are called the phases. Normally, phases are comprised of certain work, certain accomplishment. Every phase is like a sub project. But in Agile, what they did was, they said, okay, if a phase will be so big, maybe 3 months long phase or 6 months long phase, then when a phase has been started, we cannot change anything in the phase until it's complete. Because if we change anything, the whole plan of phase will be disturbed. Agile came up with a solution. They said, reduce the size of the phase to such a small portion that we have flexibility at the end. So in Agile, they have made the phases time-based. A phase in Agile is usually 2 to 6 weeks long. And you pick up only that much job which you can carry out in 2 weeks. And while you are doing job of these 2 weeks, the remaining work is open for suggestions and any changes. That way we are being flexible and we are also completing our job. So that is Agile methodology, but this is for software development. And that is based on an Agile manifesto which was developed in probably 1974. Agile manifesto describes these certain details. How can we be more flexible, faster, and more user-friendly? So those things are there in manifesto. You can search for that on internet. Now, there are various methodologies developed under that manifesto, and one of those methodologies is called Scrum. Scrum is an agile methodology, and it is a very precise mechanism or way or instructions how to meet the agile manifesto objectives, how to be flexible as well as fast. There are other methodologies, other methods, but so far the most used method in the world is Scrum. That's why, so Scrum and Agile is one and the same thing. Scrum is also Agile. Scrum is one method of Agile. And recently, as Agile has been very successful in IT projects, Project Management Institute have also started considering adding it to PMBOK, as if we can try to be Agile in all kinds of projects. But at least for IT projects, this will apply. So did I answer your question?
Yes, sir. Amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Most welcome. Okay.
And just sorry to interrupt. So I mean, by that, as I am related to the IT field, so would it be better to go for something like Prince or Agile, or like this PMP is better? Like, I mean, just asking. Though I have already made my mind, I'm just asking.
Right. You see, Prince 2 is also a traditional method, a waterfall method. Prince 2 is not Agile. But under Prince 2, they have come up with another certification which they call something Agile, something they call it. I don't exactly remember its name. But Prince 2 also have another certification for Agile. They call it D-Turn, D-T-E-R-N, D-Turn Agile something, something like that. D-Turn is their methodology. Like I said, Scrum. So Prince 2 has come up with their own methodology on Agile, and that is called D-Turn. So they teach D-Turn in their Agile certification, and they test for that. So if you are working in UK or you are working in a UK based company, then probably Prince 2 and D-Turn Agile might be useful for you. But otherwise, that is of no use. Then if you are in IT, then probably if you are being involved in Agile projects, you are really working on them, then you should go for Scrum. Otherwise, you go for PMI-ACP. PMI certification for Agile is a generic certification which teaches you all Agile methods. Generally tests your knowledge of all Agile methods. Although it is not very detailed, but it is you will have a good introduction of all the Agile methodologies. So go for PMP, that is a must, and then maybe you can go for PMI-ACP certification. That will bridge the gap. And when you think that you are actually involved in Scrum or some other methodology, then you can decide to go for that certification.
Okay, cool. Thank you, sir.
Okay, life cycle again is a very important topic, and I don't know why the other people are not here today, but this was to be discussed in front of everybody. But anyway, let me start off with it. As you have already have an idea now what the project life cycle is, let me compare it with a human life cycle. Can you divide your human life cycle into certain phases?
Yes, sir.
Like?
Definitely. Like for example, even just we can divide it from the perspective of age, like childhood and adolescence and adulthood, and then being old, and even like from the social perspective as well. As you grow, different things happen, like your college phase, school phase, university, and then something like that.
So, are these phases part of your life? Are they, were these phases specified when you were born?
Sir, it's a natural rule, I would for all the humans in a broader perspective,
Mm.
but otherwise I would say no.
Mm. So you see, that is the same human who was born, and that is the same human who is going to school. That is the same human who is going to the university, who is working, and who is getting old, and who is dying. But during the life cycle of this human being, he goes through many stages and many physical changes in his body. But the person remains the same. But his thinking changes, his way of working changes, his way of looking at the world changes, and whole of this journey from birth to the grave could be specifically divided for ease of understanding into various phases. And as you have described, maybe the adolescence or childhood and whatever, and ultimately, the old age. So you have divided from for your own convenience. And why have you divided in your own convenience? Because you want to take certain decisions, you want to make certain references to this life cycle. Like you see, you want to say that old man. That would understand. We would understand that that old man is an old man, and he is in the last stages of the life. He is in the last phase of the life cycle. Or this young boy. So this is for our own reference, and this is how we have developed our systems around it. Rather, even we have developed our laws around this. Like nobody below the age of 18 can get a national identification card. This is a law. Where is it written that you will get mature only at the age of 18? There might be some people who mature earlier. There are certain people who mature even quite late. Even if they are 24 or 26 years of age, they are still childish. And there are people who are very mature at the age of 12. Why 18? Who specified 18 and why? This is the law of the land. In our country, the age of adulthood is 18. Age of retirement is 60. So this is how it is. So we have developed our own phases of life. In different countries, in different states, you will find that the adulthood age is different. In some countries it is 16. In some countries it is 20. Some countries it is 22. Similarly, the retirement age, somebody was telling me yesterday, in Canada has been increased to 70, and it is very likely that they are increasing it to 75. Why? Because their lifespans are increasing. So whatever the conditions are, so looking at the general sequence of life, we have divided it into several phases, and we have set our expectations accordingly. You do not expect a child to behave like a wise old man, and you do not expect a professional to behave like a child. So we set our expectations accordingly. And at the end of every phase, we need certain results. That phase should yield what? So when the childhood is over, you are expected to be a mature guy, a mature person who have attained a national identity card, who has a voting right and all this, and a certain level of education. So there is always some outputs, some deliverables associated with a phase. When a phase is completed, those results must have been achieved. If those results are not achieved, the phase could not complete. Now, whatever we have talked here, let me translate into a project. Although we have to do a project, maybe construct a house, the house construction is a complete job, but I can do it in phases. What could be the phases of house construction? Any ideas?
Sir, obviously, like first getting and selecting the land, and then digging the stuff according to, like planning the structure and the design, and then digging, and then I would say uh, like building, and then like finishing.
Okay. So you have enumerated a number of phases, but naturally, if you will think it over and you will give it a cool thought, you probably will come to a concrete number of, some number of phases, and you would be able to name them. But what do you think, how many phases could be there in a project?
Sir, it depends, I guess, on the project itself.
Very good. Still, I would insist how much.
Okay, sir. Like as we have seen before, like uh, initiation, like planning, initiation, and execution, and
Monitoring and control.
then,
Okay.
yeah, and finalization, like concluding it.
Okay. Okay.
4, 5, 5, 6, maybe.
Okay. Fine. Right. This is exactly what I wanted to hear. And let's see where we are going wrong. Coming back to the human life cycle. When your childhood is over, can it come back?
No, sir.
So that means when you have achieved the targets of a phase and it is done, you cannot go back and redo something. You cannot go back to your childhood and fix certain things, right? So similarly, in project also, we have to have surgical divisions of the project. Every portion would be a separate phase, will have its own outputs and would not be parallel to any other phase. That would be a sequence. You first complete this much job, and once this has been approved, only then you can start the next phase. Then you complete the next phase, and only when you have completed and gotten it approved, then you can move on to the next phase. Now, when you say initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and control, and close, I have a very serious objection here, because these things are not specifically sequential in nature. Although it's look like that planning is done after initiation and execution is done after planning, and monitoring and control is done after execution, and closing is done after monitoring and control. Is it so? Is it really so? If you have planned once, why are you replanning when there is a change? How can you revisit planning again? If you have to monitor and control after execution has been done, then what are you monitoring and controlling? The thing has been done. You can't monitor and control it. So, you see, when you are executing the project, you are monitoring and controlling it simultaneously. And if there is a change, you are replanning there as well. So planning is a continuous process. Execution goes on while the monitoring and control goes on. And there are certain phases which are being closed right in the middle of the project. So closing has already started. So these 5 process groups, initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and control, and closing, they cannot be called the project life cycle. These are not the phases. Do you agree with me?
Yes, sir, I agree. Yes.
Now come back. When I asked you the phases of the houses, you were giving a more reasonable answer there. You were saying, acquisition of the land, digging and doing that. Everything you were talking was in a sequence. But why I objected or I stopped you was that you were going into a lot of minute details. I wanted you to break the project into major uh, bisections. Every major parts. Project should be divided into some major parts, and every part should be definable by itself, should have its own deliverable, and so on and so forth. Like you see, acquisition of land. Acquisition of land could include, maybe we can rename it, we can say uh, pre-planning activities, and we could have the acquisition of land, we could have the permission to construct, the architecture, the design made, and all those things. And once all those jobs are done, only then we can move on to the next phase. So the output of the first phase was permissions, availability of land, and maybe whatever the utility companies are, they have agreed to provide you connection. So once these 3-4 items have been confirmed, your phase 1 will be complete. Then you move on to maybe the next phase could be underground structure. Underground structure includes digging, laying of foundations, if there is a basements, and all those things which are to be done under the ground level. So you list down all these things, and what will be the result? That will be the result of this phase. Then you say, okay, the next phase is the construction of the building itself. And that would include construction of rooms and this and that and all that. And finally you say finishing of the whole house and finally handing over. So you see, I can very easily divide a project into 4 or 5 or 6 major phases. No matter how big a project is, I agree with you that the name and number of phases depends on the type of project, but at the same time, if it is a very huge project, it will not have 1000 phases. All projects, no matter how big or small, we want to keep the number of phases to a bare minimum, as if we can easily control them. If it is a very complex project, we may divide those phases into some sub-phases, but we don't want to increase a lot of complexity. So, generally speaking, the number of phases of a project should not be very high. It should be enumeratable on your fingertips. So, I would say on one hand, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is a beautiful number for dividing any kind of project. But we can be flexible, a little more, a little less, maybe from 3 to 9 or 7. 3 to 7 is a very good figure. So depending on the size and complexity, this is the range you must go to. You cannot have 1000 or 200 or 100 phases in a project. Phases should be up to the minimum. They should be clearly defined. Every phase should have a deliverable and a milestone. So this is how we divide the phases. Then there are phase-to-phase relationships between these phases. Then there are different types of phases which we will be talking about. Are you fine with it?
Yes, sir, I totally agree. Those were the processes which I was trying to say. Yeah, so phases are like simply if we divide a project into different pieces and do those pieces one by one, like,
Exactly. They should be
rather than doing.
surgically
Yeah,
separated. They should not overlap.
exactly, exactly.
Okay. So the definition of project lifecycle is the series of phases that a project passes through from its initiation to closure. The phases are generally sequential but can sometimes overlap. I'll talk about this overlap, but generally speaking, it should be sequential in nature. Phase 1, then phase 2, then phase 3. So phase by phase we do the project. But in certain cases, we may have a need to have a little overlap. Maybe one phase is yet not approved, but we need to start the next phase without having declared first phase complete. So is it possible? Yes, it is possible. With specific permissions, it is very much possible. But we don't want to start two phases simultaneously. It is impossible. A little overlap, I can bear it, but I can't bear two phases starting simultaneously. That is impossible. Okay, we did talk about how many phases should be there. Now the next question is, how should you name these phases? As you have already said, initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, and close, these are not the names for the phases. So we have also seen the example of construction of a house, and we said according to the work of that phase, but all work we are trying to include in that phase, we will name it accordingly. So this depends on the technical work of the project or that phase, how we name it. So this is purely technical in nature. This would depend upon the type of work we are doing in that phase that would help us select a name for that phase. But the name should be short. It could be, few words, 2 or 3 words. It should not be a full sentence or a paragraph. The name of the phase should be a short name, which should just be indicative of the work being done in that phase. Every phase should have certain deliverables and acceptance criteria, and when that phase achieves those deliverables, a certain milestone is achieved. Right? Are you with me?
Yes, sir. Totally agree.
Okay, next thing is, let us see the difference between a product life cycle and a project life cycle. Now we are getting into the territory of product and project. First, let us talk about what is a product life cycle. And once I talk about product life cycle, you will completely forget about project life cycle. Don't even think about project, because product is not always related with the project. So what do you think a product life cycle is?
Sir, I guess when the product is complete and it's delivered to the customer,
Okay.
and maybe once they finish it, I don't know,
What
something like that. Like finish the product, or maybe it's used completely, or it has gone through its life. Like
for
for example,
okay, fine.
like uh, like they sell a car,
Mhm.
they make a car and then sell it to the customer, and then the car is destroyed at the end, I would say.
Okay. Like in a human life cycle, when does the human life cycle start?
Uh, at the birth, no, I would say, I don't know, it could be at the birth of the child, or maybe uh, landing of Adam to the earth. It could be anything.
Let's remain within the life cycle of our person. So
Okay, sir.
you believe it starts with the birth of the child, right?
Or maybe marriage of the parents, I don't know, yeah, something like that, sir.
Let us be more specific. It starts with the conception of the child.
Yeah, for sure, yes.
Okay, we count life from the day of birth, but you know Chinese count life from the day of conception. You know that?
No, sir, no, you just told me.
Okay, Chinese, they count the life of a person from the day of conception, and that is the right way of doing it actually, because the life cycle of anything starts right from conception till divestment. So when did the product
Sir, that could be mistaken as well.
oh yes, that could be mistaken by human beings, but God knows there is only one actual conception date.
Yeah, for sure,
Generally speaking, what Chinese do is from the date of birth of the child, they subtract 9 months.
sure, yeah, sure.
That is the general rule for the age of the person. Okay. So anyways, this is a very good input, because product life cycle, or any life cycle for that matter, would start right from the conception till the divestment of that product, that item. So if we are talking about product, was the product conceived when it was made?
Now that's tricky, sir. Maybe when I mean, from that definition, it should be when the project conceived.
Not even project. Even before the project, the idea of the product was conceived maybe many years before that. When for the very first time this idea was conceived, that was the time the product life cycle had started. Then we did go through some experiments, we did some feasibilities, or feasibility was a project, another thing was a project, and some business analysis was a project, and then ultimately you decided to create that product. So creation of that product was a project, and then maybe once you have delivered that product to the customer had come up with a number of bugs, and then he asked us to revise the product. That was another project to revise the product, and that went on and on. Product went through a number of changes, a number of improvements, and ultimately there was a day when this product was retired completely. It was no more in production. So this is a long journey in product life cycle, and it spans years, rather decades, and maybe centuries. If I asked you, what is the product life cycle of a pencil? The day the idea of a pencil was conceived, and today it is still under production. You see, the product life cycle of a pencil has yet not finished, and it has gone over centuries. So a product life cycle could be a very long duration. It starts from conception and finishes only when they will stop making the pencils.
Sir, isn't it too idealistic? I mean,
Uh,
uh,
that depends upon what you call a product. If you call pencil a product, then this product life cycle which I described is true. But if you say a specific brand of pencil is a product, then that specific brand was conceived maybe 20 years ago and it is no more in production. It was discontinued last year. So the life cycle of that specific brand of pencil was, say, 19 years. Now you understand the point.
yes, sir. Okay, clear. Thank you.
So previously, why I said disassociated the definition of product life cycle from the project life cycle is because normally people start thinking the project is delivering a product, and when it delivers the product and goes to the customer, that is the time when the product life cycle starts. That is wrong. Product life cycle has already started much before the project life cycle has ever been conceived. So product life cycle is a much larger life cycle, and project life cycle is a smaller life cycle as compared to product. In a product life cycle, there could be many project life cycles. Generally, a project life cycle is contained within one or more product life cycles. Care should be taken to distinguish the project life cycle from the product life cycle. You should not confuse it as we were earlier confusing it. All projects have a purpose or objective. They have to deliver something. Maybe the objective of my project is to do the feasibility of producing the pencils, or to create a business case. So even business case could be a result of the project. But basically this is contributing towards the product life cycle of production of pencils. Where objective is a result or service, there may be a life cycle for the service or result, not a product life cycle. I hope this pretty much distinguishes between the product and project life cycle.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Now this is just a matter of conception. How do you really take it? Sometimes people consider the whole cycle of production as one big project, and all the steps we take within that big project, they may call it the project phases. Maybe for someone, the feasibility was one project, market research was another project, running the advertising campaign was another project, installing the product was another project, phase. They could either be treated as phases, or they could be treated as an independent project. Feasibility could be a phase or could be a project. Market research could be a phase or could be a project. So whatever perspective you are taking, if you are considering whole of it as a large project, then these all are phases. If you are considering each one of these as project, then these all are in happenings in a product life cycle. Product may have many projects associated with it. Additional efficiencies may be gained by managing related projects collectively. So that's what we were talking about in the program management, that the projects which are related and interconnected must be managed as a program. But what if I want to, relate all the projects related to one product? That means I am not only talking about the ongoing projects, but all the projects which have ever happened in the product life cycle of this product and will happen in future. So this is a time-based relationship of all the projects on this streams of time. A number of separate projects may be related to the development of a new automobile. Each project may be distinct but will still contribute a key deliverable necessary to bring the automobile to market. Oversight of all projects by a higher authority could significantly increase the likelihood of success. If there is a product manager, I'm not talking about the project manager, if there is a product manager who is responsible for the whole chain of product deliverable, then it would be more efficiently produced. Whatever, we are creating a specific model of Toyota Corolla. So the product manager is he is not manager of this model. He is manager of all the previous models and the future model, the whole product line he is responsible for. And he is giving us lessons from the previous project, and he is conceiving the future versions. So this is yet another view, another mechanism, another way of looking at the relationship of projects back into past and forward into the future. This is along the product life cycle. All the projects along the product life cycle could be governed, could be managed overall by a product manager. This is a completely new concept here because we did not talk about the product manager, but we understand product managers do exist in organizations, and now you will be better equipped to understand what is the role of a product manager. Okay, project life cycle, the phases can be broken down. You can divide the phases of a project in whatever way you want. But as I said, it should be surgical divisions. There should not be any overlap. You should not leave out certain half-done jobs in one phase to be done in the next phase. Generally speaking, we should not do that. So they could be divided from according to the functional or partial objective. They could be divided according to the results to be achieved or the deliverables, specific milestones within overall scope of the work. You may say that the first phase will meet these 2 milestones, the next phase will meet these 3 milestones, and so on and so on. And financial availability, maybe it is dependent on the availability of funding. And because you have only enough funding to do this much job, so this could be one phase, and then more money would be made available for the next phase, and only this much job can be done in that. Phases are generally time bounded with a start and end. Like projects are time bounded. They start and finish at specific point in time, but that does not really mean that all phases are equal in size. I'm not talking about Agile or Scrum, because in Agile and Scrum, they are exactly of the same duration. Here we are not saying they are of the same duration. We are saying phases are time bound because they are just like small little projects, and they must start and they must finish at some point in time. They are not indefinite. So a life cycle can be documented with a methodology. Every life cycle may have its own methodology. Like Prince2 is a methodology. So you could use any methodology. The life cycle can be determined or shaped by the unique aspects of the organization, industry, or technology. So life cycle can be dictated by the organization. As we were discussing earlier, your organization can say that for the kinds of projects we are doing in our organization, this is the standard life cycle every project should use. Or it could give us a flexibility that only these 3 or 4 types of life cycles could be used in our organization, and you have a flexibility of using out of these 4. It could be determined by the industry. What are the industry practices? Maybe you are in the automobile industry. What is how automobile is constructed? What are the phases of constructing, developing, creating an automobile? So from your industry, you will take the precedence and you can use the same life cycle. Or if there is a specific technology, that technology may have a flow. So you could have taken your life cycle from that technology. While every project has a definite start and definite end, the specific deliverables and activities that take place in between will vary widely with the project. Provides the framework for managing the project. So that means that in project lifecycle, each phase must have its own deliverable, its own activities, its own milestone, some milestone to be achieved, its own framework. Project lifecycle can range along a continuum of predictive and plan-driven approaches, depending upon how much you know about your project, how much certain are you about the information available for the project. If you can predict almost everything and there is not much to change in scope, then you are either going for a predictive or a plan-driven approaches. You are quite firm about your plan. There are very little things which are to be changed. But on the other hand, there are other projects which are highly uncertain. You do not have enough data, and a lot many things are likely to change, and you have to adjust accordingly. Such projects are called adaptive or change driven. So such like approaches will be used in that case. So we have two different classes, predictive and adaptive. Predictive, the product and deliverables are defined at the beginning of the project and any changes to scope are carefully managed. Although in predictive life cycle or a plan driven life cycle, still there would be some changes in scope, but there will not be many changes in scope. So generally, whatever we have predicted, generally the things will happen like that with a slight change here and there. But in adaptive life cycle, the product is developed over multiple iterations. We don't know anything, or we know very little about the product, and whatever we know, we start doing our work according to that, and later we know more and we keep developing our plans and keep with each iteration we keep learning more, developing the scope, and ultimately completing the product. So what does this adaptive lead us to? This is very similar to the idea of agile. In agile, we said there are a lot of changes. We are accommodating a lot of requirements by the customer. All the time customer may come up with any request to change and we welcome that. So that means we are being highly adaptive. And if we are being highly adaptive, we must be working in multiple iterations. Small iterations, each phase will be very small and we are only focusing on that phase. Therefore, anything after that is open for change. If we are working in a predictive life cycle, our phases will be large and there will not be a possibility to change anything in a phase we are currently running. So if it is a 6 month project, a 6 month phase, then during this phase we cannot change anything, or we will have a lot of difficulty changing anything, and we can only change things after the phase is completed. Projects vary in size and complexity. That is very obvious. But no matter how long or small, large or small, simple or complex, all projects can be mapped to a generic life cycle. I am not at all suggesting that these are the standard life cycle phases. But this is just an example for your consumption. Although we know that every project will have its own phases, but because we don't know what project we are talking about, so generally speaking, let us assume these are the 4 phases. All those jobs which have to be done in the beginning, all the organizational work may be the next phase, all the physical carrying out of the work may be the next phase, closing may be the last phase. I am not at all implying by any means that we are talking about initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, control, and close. Although the names are very similar to that, but we are not talking about that. So it is just, some names given to some phases: starting, organizing, carrying out, and closing. Okay, I think before we can move any further, we should stop and we should bend it to next Monday, next week. And I hope all of the people who registered with the course will be able to attend, because as far as Rijo is concerned, I am very much worried because he has missed a lot. But anyways, let's see you next time, next week. But any questions so far, if you have, please come up.
No, I guess, sir, it's really good. I hope I'll be able to revise both these chapters by Monday. So I guess it's good enough.
Yeah, we will be closing this lecture on Monday.
Sure, sir, sure.
Okay, thank you, Mohsin. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night, sir. Have a nice weekend.
That's it.
Allah Hafiz. Allah Hafiz.